Hey everybody, welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrove, an episode on Wuthering Heights, the 2026 film, also probably the novel by Emily Bronte, published in the mid-19th century. Spoilers replete throughout. It's probably worth just saying, my name's Bina 007, I'll be your host today. But this podcast started off as an offshoot of another fan podcast about A Song of Ice and Fire called A Podcast of Ice and Fire. And that fan community and this fan community, I guess, start as kind of book first people. So if you want to hear nerd rage about House of the Dragon and Unlike the Seven Kingdoms and Game of Thrones and how they may or may not hew to the books, that's your place. This is your community. So I guess when we discuss Wuthering Heights, the film, it's probably just worth bearing that in mind. So if you love the film, if you're not that interested in the book, this may or may not be the episode for you. But we hope you stick around. I am joined today by the lovely Steph.
Hello, Steph, or GSDG on the forums.
And by Casey.
Hey, this is Casey, Blue Eyed Queen on the internet.
There you go. And if you want to join us on our Discord, head to our YouTube channel, go to our WordPress page, and you'll see a link to join us. So let's begin with some lemon cake ratings of the movie. So out of 5, how many broken eggs hidden under the duvet would you give this? Casey, how about you? How many film stars?
Oh boy. I think I'm gonna give it tentatively a 3.
Ooh, that's not bad.
I wouldn't call it Wuthering Heights though. That's kind of my
It's just on its own terms as a film,
Yeah.
And you can give a star rating as an adaptation too if you want to.
I mean, I would probably give that like maybe a 1.5.
Steph, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I go for the bowl of brown instead, but in terms of like a dumpster fire, this was, I'd say, like a 2 on a scale of 5 dumpster fires. I give it a 2 for like how enjoyable it is. So like think like the Rocky Horror Picture Show or The Room as 5 amazing dumpster fires.
And then
Does
as an
that make sense?
adaptation? Yeah.
0. Yeah, bowl of brown.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would give it 2 out of 5 too, or 1 out of 5. I think I like the score, both the actual score and the Charlie XCX. Cinematography was quite lovely. I really liked the performances of Hong Chow and Martin Clunes. So there were good, I mean, like there were things I really hated, but I'm trying not to be utterly unfair. I think initially when I wrote my review on my blog, I gave it, that shows how old I am. I have a blog. I gave it 0 stars. And actually, that's unfair. Like rating, I rate out of 10. So I'd probably give it like 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 5. As an adaptation, I think it's kind of like, it's kind of a 1 or 2 out of 5, but it's almost like an inverse 1 or 2 because there are things in there from the book, but there are things that are so deliberately misread and misunderstood and misinterpreted. It's almost like, oh man, you read it and you took bits and then you messed them up. But let's start off maybe with just a film discussion and then we can maybe get into the books if you like. So let's start off with maybe the story. I mean, were you swept up on its own terms? Emerald Fennel's adaptation of Wuthering Heights in inverted commas. She said she wants to recreate the feeling she had reading it at 14 at school. And she wants to make it into a bodice ripping, gorgeous, sexy love story about 2 childhood sweethearts who kind of on a misunderstanding, but a genuine class difference is split aside. The heroine Cathy goes off and marries the lovely but slightly sort of milksop Edgar. The hero comes back richer, cleaned up, maybe a bit more respectable, but it's kind of too late because she's married and she's pregnant and they have this, stormy, sort of lovely, sensual affair, but they can't really be together, right? Because she is pregnant, she's married to someone else, and she kind of basically kind of starts willfully dying, I guess, has a ectopic pregnancy, I don't know, has septicemia, dies, and he is just traumatized. So that's the story in this film. Did you buy into it as a bodice ripper? Did you get the chemistry between the hero and heroine? Did you care about their love story?
I did not. But so just taking the film as its own terms. So I think there was a little too much on the childhood friend sequence, and we didn't see enough of them doing stuff like that when they were grown. And then also, I think we could put a pin on the casting of Jacob Elordi because that's its own controversy. But with his like farm boy adult Heathcliff,
Hmm.
get up. I was just so unsettled by his appearance because, like, I'm just like, when I was in the cinema, I was thinking, this, like, sexy Sasquatch Jesus is reminding me of something, but I cannot put my finger on it. And then on the train home, I just, like, had the revelation. It's just like, he looks like Charlie Manson.
Don't do that to me. I think Jacob Lordy's really good looking. I don't want to see him as Charlie Manson. That's mean.
I'm sure, like,
Oh,
he is not like
Steph.
that as a person, but
A million teenage hearts break. So you didn't buy into it. I kind of bought it. I mean, as a
I
sexy little sordid romance, I did. I thought it worked. I mean, I think whatever.
I
He's
didn't really
very
buy the
handsome.
stuff. I didn't really feel that much chemistry between them in
Ah, okay.
the farm boy sequence, and that's like, you have to build that to, like, make the stakes of Cathy rejecting Heathcliff at the end of that act, right? So you have to uh and so that was a big fumble for me.
Yeah.
Very
Casey, how
well.
about you? Did you buy just as a film on its own terms? Did you buy into that romance?
I wasn't sure at first, but by the end, I kind of knew, like, with me tearing up a bit at the end, I was like, oh, I kind of
Oh,
did actually, like, buy this a little bit. So, like, I was actually kind of shocked that the ending kind of got me, like, as it did, because throughout the movie, I was like, I don't like this. This is weird. Why are we doing this? Why are we here right now? But, like, it worked in a sense for me. I think the thing that bothers me the most is kind of what Stephanie was saying with, they don't show much of their friendship or romance before or in between them being kids and uh, her marrying Edgar. And so it feels like the reason, I mean, they make clear in the movie that the tension is because she feels like she shouldn't do this because she is a more noble woman and needs to marry for money. But it doesn't feel right, and it feels like they should have probably put that in there more, and I think I would have believed it more if that were the sense. As
mm,
far as their, like, on-camera chemistry though, I think I felt it maybe more from a Lordy, but I think it really all just kind of stems from the problem of, like, the age of them both.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I think the time jump between them being kids and scampering across the heath, and then her at sort of 18 or 17 marrying Edgar Linton. And so actually there isn't much time between that, right? And it is all very kind of pubescent and awkward and yeah. I think
Yeah.
yeah, it makes less sense when they're older. That why didn't you declare stuff? Why didn't you get on with it?
So
Anything else in the film that you really liked, Casey? Because you gave it the highest rating. So what spoke to you to give it that
what
high rating?
I liked some of the quirkiness of it. I liked there's the trope of your high school sweetheart or your crush coming back to, your hometown, and all of a
Mm.
sudden they're changed and attractive, and it's everything that you thought they wouldn't be, and they end up being that, and the regret turns into an affair, and it turns into, a big problem and regret and death. But
Yes,
uh,
yes, it did. I mean, it's a powerful story, and sometimes I think like some of these stories are so powerful that, and such tropes for a reason, right? Like you say, the sort of the high school person that then gets a makeover and is suddenly dazzlingly attractive, but you've messed it up and it's too late. They're powerful for a reason, and even when someone monkeys around with them, the power is still there. And I think actually, I think Jacob Elordi is genuinely very good. Although it struck me in his Charlie Manson phase, as he described it, Steph, to me, he was just reprising his role in Frankenstein with the long hair and the moodiness and always looking down and under his eyebrows and sort of sensitive soul under this big brooding thing. And actually, my husband claimed that this is basically just Frankenstein, right? It's the good, pure guy who's turned into a monster by evil society and wreaks revenge on his makers. And I was like, oh God, you're not wrong. Yeah.
See, that's kind of the problem of just doing the first half of Wuthering Heights, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Maybe let's segue into the book. So, Casey, had you read the book before you saw the film? And having now read the book, heard the book, any further thoughts on that? Because I know Steph and I are both deep into the book, but how do you feel?
Yeah, so I know I'm a bit unique here in that I did not read it as a teen or young adult even. I'm 33 now, so this is the first time I've read it, and it was actually like a very infuriating read because of how infuriating all the characters are.
Yeah, that's the appropriate response. Emily Bronte was herself infuriating, so like, I think
Yeah.
that's appropriate.
And I think honestly the main reason I didn't end up reading it as a kid was just because I read Jane Eyre
Yeah.
as a younger teenager and I despised it.
Yeah.
Because the ending, though, like I've come to agree that the main character gets to choose what she wants and that's what she wants, and she's had herself a little bit more of a happy ending than she wanted to in Jane Eyre. But like, I after reading that, I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of like maybe like the times have changed so much, and I don't want to get into reading more older literature. But I felt like, especially last year, like I decided I really wanted to go back to more older works and for the time that they were written in and appreciate them more. So Wuthering Heights has been on my list, so I gave it a shot. And I think I definitely liked it a lot better than Jane Eyre, for sure, but I kind of want to go back and read it
They're
now.
very different though, aren't they? I mean, it's weird
Oh, yeah.
because they're written by sisters. And I think
No,
the
but that's the
relationship
classic.
between the sisters is very odd. Like the forward to Wuthering Heights by Jane, where she's almost apologizing for her sister, and it's quite patronizing. Where she's kind of like, yeah, well, it's the first work by a young mind, and no doubt would have matured. So I just want to apologize for its wildness and its violence and its weirdness and its but I mean, obviously she's very talented, but it's this very kind of like odd intro. And she did wildly edit the book as well, and apparently toned down some of like the crazier elements, if you can believe it. So
Right.
including like I find Joseph quite unintelligible on the page. Like I literally skip over when Joseph's speaking because I can't decipher it. And
Mhm.
apparently she made it a lot more understandable. So yeah. Sorry, Steph, you were gonna jump in.
Oh yeah, sorry, but that is kind of just the classic sibling thing, though, of just two siblings who are, like complete opposites of each other, and then just write completely opposite books, and just like with Jane Eyre, like we have concrete explanations for like everything. We know why, like Jane's aunt hated her so much. We know why Jane's other relatives weren't in the picture, right?
Mm.
But here we have so many unanswered questions about Heathcliff's origins, how Heathcliff made his money, etc. Why didn't Nellie
Yeah,
tell
yeah. I
Cathy?
mean,
Which they
everything is
try to address in the
slippery.
movie. Yeah.
Everything is slippery in the book, and everything is like a tale told by someone who was there, who may or may not be telling you what really
Yep.
happened to someone else 20 to 30 years later. Like
And
it's
Nellie,
very unreliable. Whereas Jane
yeah,
Eyre is like,
and
read or I married him. I mean, it's all in the first person, so it's very direct.
yep, and
Yeah.
just like Nellie is telling us this story, and she could be making it all up. Who knows?
So did you find the book surprising, Casey, or like
I,
did
I
it did
definitely
it freak you out? Because it's quite a freaky book in some respects.
I think I had like some idea of, or some, my idea of what I thought it would be based off of, I'd seen the preview for Wuthering Heights, I'd seen a lot of the discourse online. And so I was like, well, let me just read this first. And, it's when Catherine dies in the barely the middle of the book, I was just like, oh no, like, what is the rest of this gonna be? Like, this is awful. Like, this is how do you die of just like your own self like that withering away because you want to?
Mm.
Dying of a broken heart.
Yeah.
Or anorexia, right? One of the two.
Right.
Well, both.
Um, or both. Let's get into it, and let's get into the characters, both in book and film. And let's start off with Heathcliff as our protagonist, because I think that's where all the controversy is going to lie. Reading the book or listening to the book for the first time, Casey, with some of the because I think me and Steph are kind of so in this. I'm just curious, what ethnicity or what did you think Heathcliff was?
This is something I've ruminated over a lot. I think that I'd seen some of the discourse about about Jacob Elordi being cast and the racial differences, and like it is a big part of the first section of the book that he is darker skinned, gypsy, as they explicitly say in the book. You know, it's very much not how you would view somebody who looks like Jacob Elordi, who I believe is Australian.
Mm-hmm.
And so that weirded me out. There's a part of, there's knowing my history and knowing my, other cultures and the racism that, is a bit different than what I experience or what I've seen in the United States. The, it's not hard for me to believe that, like, just slight differences in race can set people off in a different time period. So that being said, it's kind of, I mean, knowing the history, knowing the time, I would have said like Eastern European, Romania, or, like gypsies were from that region, but then, you kind of feel like he's maybe from like more foreign an area and you don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that at the time, apparently, there were a lot of gypsies in that part of Yorkshire, and also it's close to Liverpool, which was a port for Irish immigration,
Mm-hmm.
and B, a centre of the British slave trade. So, and at one point, Nelly says you could have been the son of like an Indian princess. There's mention of Lascars, which are merchant seamen from India.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very ambiguous. I was listening to a podcast on this book by the Rest is History people. There's an offshoot podcast now called The Book Club, and they covered Wuthering Heights. And Dominic Sambrook, who is a proper historian, argues that he thinks Heathcliff would be Irish and that readers at the time would have understood from the word gypsy or from the book that he was Irish, which I'm not sure is true. But I do think he's gypsy. I think the fact that he is othered by his looks, and bear in mind, this is, Victorian readers were really into physiognomy. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but this idea that kind of
Phrenology?
phrenology, but also that just your physical appearance, not just your brain, kind of determines
Right.
morality. And if you have like a low forehead and you're darker, it's like Jekyll and Hyde, right? So I think that we're meant to understand that he is othered for the way he looks, and that a lot of the Hollywood kind of white casting is just softening that. And it kind of disturbs me a bit that Emerald Fennel thinks by having brown people in other roles maybe makes up for that. But I'm like, to me, it's so part of Heathcliff, because I find it weird that she thinks that Edgar is okay for Cathy to marry because he's brown, but he has money. So the money kind of makes up for it, even though her dad is like, well, he'll never be quite the top drawer like us, but at least he's got money. But the whole point about Heathcliff is that even when he comes back with money, he's still feared. People still call him a fiend. He's associated with the devil. Like, these are very religious times, like very religious times, right? So people take evil and good very literally and very physically.
Right.
So it just feels weird to me that all the Hollywood adaptations, really, apart from the 2011 one, don't really tackle it. But I just figured in 2026 we'd be better than that, but maybe not. I don't know. It made me sad. I think Jacob Elordi does a really good job. I think his Yorkshire accent's good, really good actually, and yeah, I think he does a really good job. But
Yeah, and I think like the main is the big thing about the movie that, you know, whether or not it's skin tone or otherness, it's just they really don't explore that well in this movie at all. And
yeah,
it's not even a thing. It's not even a part of this movie essentially. They don't even want to talk about it.
yeah,
Um
which is
and
weird.
it is. And the book, one of the things I really enjoyed about this book is the discourse, discussion, and feelings surrounding discrimination, not just from the racial side, but sexism, and
Yep.
kind of seeing how, a white woman and a man of color can have they experience these differing forms of discrimination, and
Yeah.
they both think that they can get around it and they can't.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I
and
completely agree. The way in which Isabella, for example, is trapped in a horrific marriage and kind of through her own courage manages to somehow escape, but is still shunned, right? She has to go south to raise her son. And they say it's because of her delicate health, but basically it's because she's a single mum. And then young Cathy basically being disinherited of everything. Like, you're so financially imprisoned. And even
mhm.
older Cathy, right? Like her big brother is gambling away the estate, which is heavily mortgaged to Heathcliff. And yes, she's married to Edgar. She never, in the book, she never actually wants to leave Edgar, right? She kind of wants to have both. She doesn't really understand why she can't have
Right.
both. And it's this complete juvenile inability to reconcile the fact that she can't have both that leads her to basically self-annihilate in some way. But it's yeah, the women are very trapped. But also, I think partly why I also really object to the film is I thought the one woman, well, there are two women, right, who really managed to kind of make a life for themselves. One is Isabella when she escapes, and the
Mhm.
other one is young Cathy. And I just thought it was a shame in the film, as comic as she was, she's a very funny actress, to make Isabella this kind of very willing, winking, consensual sub. I thought it was a bit of a shame actually, because she's actually one of the most decent characters in the book. Like, as you said, it's a book where everyone sucks, but like Isabella's actually quite nice, I think, and quite courageous in
Yeah,
her own way.
yeah, and actually, so I have a few remaining thoughts about Heathcliff that
Yeah, let's do it.
didn't really make it into the flow. Yeah, so maybe if you want to edit this, but yeah, so just like also, I think in like the original Scarface that Tony Montana was Italian, but then in the Al Pacino one they made it that he was Cuban. So there can be of like that like the point is supposed to be that he is the other, right?
Yeah, you
But
could make him black, you can make him a gypsy, you could make him poor and Irish, you can make him whatever would symbolize being othered in that era or our era, right? Jacob
right,
Elordi as a very handsome 6'5", big brawny Australian is like the opposite of that. He's the ultimate jock.
right. And yeah, so and also like as you read on the Discord, Bina, like he is like actually trying to play it straight, and I
Yeah.
give him credit. I give him credit for that, even though I do not like this movie. It's just like this is a hot mess everywhere. But at least like he was trying.
Points for effort. Do we want to get into whether Heathcliff and Cathy, elder Cathy, are in fact siblings?
Oh yes, please. So
Why did Papa Earnshaw bring home this little beggar boy from Liverpool? Some have said out of the kindness of his heart, and indeed that's what's shown in the film. The film is actually very accurate on that he just picks him up on the side of the street and just brings him home kind of on a whim out of goodness. Some people have argued that Heathcliff is the illegitimate son of Earnshaw and he's kind of smuggled him home, maybe by some prostitute he's keeping in Liverpool or whatever. Actually, I was interested. I reread the novel yesterday and today, and there's nothing really to hint at that in the novel. And there's a lot to say that young Cathy and actually her nephew Hareton have her eyes. That there's a big play about sort of inherited physical traits. And if that were her brother, that would have been shown. I don't know. So actually, I don't think they're siblings now, having reread it, Steph. But what's the case for siblings,
okay.
and does it make it creepier? Yes,
Yeah,
it
so
does.
I mean,
Obviously.
yes, it does. So the main case for like the sibling theory is just why would Papa Earnshaw take this urchin off the
Mm.
streets instead of a different one, right? Because it's like surely like being this active port, a lot of prostitution in ports that in general
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
urban poverty. It takes place in the late 18th century, but still like still a lot of urban
I
poverty
think
in
my
major
argument against
English
that is
cities, right?
if he knocked up a prostitute or a mistress, why wouldn't he just take home the babe immediately? Why when he's already like 6 or 7? Like he's not going to
Well,
keep
then
him
the hard
trapped.
years are done. Maybe it's like, hey, wife, you don't have
Maybe.
to suffer this bastard waking you up in the middle of the night, even if she's not taking care of it herself.
It would speak to why they're instinctively like brother and sister. Like she just immediately has a fondness for him. They go scampering around. It doesn't
Right.
strike me in the book that it's a particularly sexual relationship. In fact, you could argue very strongly that by the time she dies, they've never actually kissed. It's almost like when they describe each other, it's almost like they want to be each other. They think they're one person that's been split by the universe and they
Mm-hmm.
just want to be back as a whole. It's almost not like a sexual attraction of two independent people. It's almost like, I don't know, like one body has been split and they have to possess each other, like they just need each other. But I don't know, Casey, you read the novel. Do you think there's any hint that they're how did you interpret their attraction to each other? I guess is the better, broader question.
Honestly, I didn't even think that they were siblings until like, the thought may have crossed my mind when I was just like, oh, but there's all this. I hate the whole cousin thing.
I know.
It is constantly in every everything from this time period, constantly there's something about somebody's cousins getting married. But I assume that's, I know it's normal, but I assume that's partially a trope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Particularly with the Brontes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I really didn't think that they were siblings at all. Like when when the cousins started getting together, I was like, is there any chance? And I was like, they're made to, like, from the beginning, so different in look, and that's a main theme of it. So I don't think so, but like anything's possible.
I think it works better if they're not. But it is a weird love story, right? Because it isn't a romantic love story as such. Like, if you think to the time when he runs off and he's heard her discussing her feelings with Nelly,
Hmm.
we wouldn't, right? Because it's all narrated by Nelly, so she doesn't know what they're getting up to on the moors. But we've never really seen them exchange any kind of loving glances. It's just that they're hugely attached. Like, they're almost like ultimate besties, like very obsessed besties. It's a very weird relationship.
Yeah, actually, going into the movie, I was 100% ready to forgive them for doing the love story that was off screen.
Mm,
I think it should have been, I think it could have been done differently and made more sense with, their ages, and even if they had a younger in between character between the kid and teenage them. They
mm.
make mention of Catherine being an old maid in one scene,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
because
not like
Emerald Fennel's not
they're
even on
trying to
script right
pretend
now.
she's
Yeah.
not as young as or not as old as she is. But you know, it. I was ready to forgive them for that, and I kind of, reading the book, like, you know, Bina, this might be need your you need to educate me a little bit here, but like they use the language erect, ejaculate, like all throughout this story, especially in the beginning, that made me feel like, there's something sinister going on in the background that we're not supposed to know about. And also, Nelly's telling the story how Nelly's telling the story. So I think that it's really designed to show, like, to make the reader think, like, what are they doing back there, and kind of use your imagination. So I was ready going into the movie to forgive them for that, and
Mm.
honestly, I was kind of into it. Like, yeah, like maybe they're doing stuff that we didn't know about in the book. Like maybe whatever I was imagining while reading it was happening, and I think that kind of died for me with Isabella's character a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because
and I'm
it's
still
totally so jarring as well, isn't it? It's just like,
right.
yeah, like, where is this
So
going
like
to go?
I'm honestly pretty conflicted because it works for me with Catherine and Heathcliff. It does not, like, the argument stops with Isabella, in my opinion, when you're at least
Mm,
going for plausible deniability from the book story.
yeah.
And I think that they really made a poor decision with her.
Like when Emerald Fennel decides to give her a sapphic little pop-up book with little penises in the form
Yeah.
and vaginas. It was
Like
like literally the
what
screening I
was
was
that?
in, everyone just burst out. Like, there were 2 points in the screening I was in where people literally laughed at the film, not with it. That was because I think Emerald thinks we're laughing with it, but no, people were laughing at it. That was one of them. The other one
Mhm.
was when Martin Clunes as drunken Papa Earnshaw dies, and there's two mountains of empty green gin bottles behind him. It's like, yeah, yeah, we get it. Like, oh, you just don't have any sense of self-discipline around how you put stuff on screen, do you?
Yeah,
But you're
and just like it feels like a lot of the over the top elements, like the hair intro, which made me gag. The like Isabella's just entire stalker aspect, and the pop up book, and the wallpaper in Cathy's married bedchamber, and like the wacky fireplace at Thrushcross Grange. Like it looks like a lot of those like weird things are trying to like ape the bizarreness of a film like Poor Things, but
yes,
like you're trying to it's just it doesn't work here.
it just doesn't work. And actually, they really do. Let's go from Heathcliff to Isabella. Weirdly, we will come back to Cathy because Isabella is such a noble character in the book. Like, there's a point where she's been abducted or kind of lured into this marriage, and she realizes she's not stupid. She realizes very quickly that Heathcliff has done this to revenge himself on Edgar and Cathy.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want Nelly to tell her family. She doesn't want to write letters home because she doesn't want to be part of that revenge, even though she should be begging for help and asking them to come rescue her. She doesn't want to give Heathcliff the satisfaction of saying how miserable she is, which is such a noble and strong thing. And like I said, she does escape on her own terms. She admits she was an idiot, but she knows she was wrong almost immediately. And I just feel that and actually her thoughts, they're not sapphic, but they're often very noble towards Cathy and Edgar. Like, I don't want them to cause pain. She's very sorry to see Big Cathy, so ill. It's just, I mean, she doesn't raise her son particularly well. We can get into that, but she's a good character. Any thoughts on Isabel before we move to Big Cathy?
Yeah, so
Isabella, sorry.
so now that they've made her this like this submissive who's into it, I guess, like, but that struck me as just commentary about the, like, as you alluded to, Bina, in the Discord, the, like, some sort of like attempt at a commentary for like the bodice ripper genre in the Me Too era.
And also,
But
like, basically, it softens Heathcliff a lot, right? So Heathcliff in this film isn't a vengeful fiend at all, really, because whatever he does to Isabella, he does very explicitly with her consent. And
yeah,
it
and it's
just,
like,
like, there's none of that harshness to him. I mean, he's basically, I mean, yeah, he's pissed off and he's vengeful, but he gets her permission.
right, and it's okay that he chained her to the fireplace because he has a chain for himself too when he feels like it.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Like the explicitly getting her consent in that first scene with them together, it kind of gave me like a little bit of like, oh, maybe we're not going here. But then, like, when she hesitates at that one point, it's just like,
Yeah.
this feels, I'm confused about how she's feeling. I'm conflicted on this entire thing. Maybe that's what we're supposed to feel. I did think
Maybe.
the actress did an excellent job at what she was supposed to do.
Oh yeah, she's a great actress. She's just in a totally different film to Jacob Elordi. Like, he's trying to play it really straight as this brooding, byronic hero, and she's in this kind of. She's still in Saltburn. She's in Emerald Fennel's prior film, I think.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
did not see that one, but
yeah.
yeah.
Please don't. That's even worse. I
Brett
really
loved
liked
it.
Emerald Fennel's first film, Promising Young Woman, which is why I find all this very disappointing. Let's go to
Yeah,
Big
Promising Young
Cathy.
Woman
Oh,
was a
sorry.
revelation. What the hell? What
That
was
was
she
great.
smoking back then? And why
I
did her
know.
dealer cut her off? Like,
Maybe she got pregnant, didn't she, when she was making it? Maybe she stopped smoking, and that's when it all went wrong. Okay, let's go to Big Cathy, aka Margot Robbie, who begged. She's an executive producer on the film. Apparently, asked Emerald Fennel to play Cathy. Emerald Fennel clearly should have said no, because a lot of Cathy and indeed Heathcliff's behavior, I think, is explained by their age and the fact that they're prepubescent, then pubescent. Big Cathy is dead at 20. Heathcliff is dead at 40. Margot Robbie is early to mid 30s. They very much look their age. I mean, I've been quite scathing about Margot Robbie and her looks, which is awful, and I should take that back and not argue ad hominem. But I just think that, yes, there were some clumsy attempts to explain that, yes, she's a spinster, but I just feel that the age really matters here. And, we got into this with Game of Thrones. When you age people up, sometimes for good reason, it can change dynamics and have unintended consequences. And I don't know. I think Margot Robbie was fine with the material she had. Her accent's a bit weird. Her cut class English accent's a bit weird. But it's a bit of a thankless role. And why do you think she died in this? Like, do you think I don't know. There's a weird thing in the book, isn't there, Casey? Like, you read it very recently as well, that you don't kind of realize she's dying so swiftly and then she dies. And
Yeah.
also in the book, it's very weird because you don't realize she's pregnant until she's given birth just before she dies. Because
Yeah, I had like,
actually, I was shocked. Emily Bronte doesn't mention she's pregnant at all until she's given birth. It's bizarre.
I was so confused with that chapter because I had to reread it or re-listen to it because I was like, what do you mean she had like how did nobody see this or like try to help her more? It's a lot of weird explanations from Nelly in that section, I guess, is all we
Yeah.
can say.
And
But
even in the film, because Margot Robbie never looks pregnant, and then we realize it's because the baby had died very early. But I was like, oh,
right.
maybe they're just not. She thinks she's pregnant, but she won't be. It's just it's all very odd. And to me, that's part of the infant. Like I think a lot of the tragedy of Heathcliff and Cathy is they're always trying to get back to that prepubescent moment when they're running around on the moors together and no one's interfering in them and they can just be together.
Right.
And there's a kind of, that's why I don't actually think they had sex, because I think there's a kind of denial of puberty and the reality that comes with that, the financial classism, racism, everything that comes with that, that marriage is a contract and it's a financial decision in this era. And like if you can somehow be in arrested development, you escape all that. And I feel that with Cathy and Heathcliff, they're always trying to get back to that. And that's why, in a sense, both of them punish their bodies. They make them weaker. Like Cathy definitely, she as soon as she has her big argument with Heathcliff, she starves herself. Heathcliff at the end before dying starves himself. There's a real, and arguably Emily Bronte was anorexic. So you get a feeling that this is, it's kind of like I'm going to deny my fully formed adult body. But it's weird, isn't it? I mean, Steph, I don't know if you remember the book and when you read it, but how did you feel about that?
Yeah, so that tracks with what I remember, and I actually intended to, like start my reread after this
Mm,
recording, and I'd be down for just a more focused book club type
book. Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
I like your reading of the childishness that they're chasing.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because I kind of feel that in a certain way, Cathy's quite moral and quite Christian or quite conventional. Maybe not religious, but conventional. Because in the book, at least, like it never crosses her mind to sort of cheat on her husband. And she doesn't, right? And that's what causes kind of the moral crisis.
Emerald Fennel essentially made this movie so she could make Heathcliff and Cathy bang, right?
Yeah, basically.
But it's just the longing is part of what makes the tension so good and what makes you feel the regret that goes into the haunt me then monologue from Heathcliff.
Yeah, it's way sadder if they never bang.
And yeah, so he's I don't, from what I saw here, I don't it's I kind of don't believe that he's digging up her grave if they banged.
Yeah, because I mean that's by far the weirdest part of the fucking book, isn't it? Like he digs up her grave not once but twice. I mean it's
Right.
borderline necro, isn't it? It's just very, very odd. Anything on Cathy? Big Cathy? Any thoughts, feelings?
So they kind of combine, I mean, in the movie, they kind of combine Cathy and Cathy in a
Mm,
sense.
big and little.
Yeah. I mean, they not so much as other characters have been combined, but I know like it's kind of getting into the whole cousin thing is pretty taboo and all that, but it is like a dual love story in the books, and it would have been nice and interesting.
I think the second love story is the real love story because it's a genuine love story. Like there is that kind of that mirror, that echo of the degradation. You know, young Cathy has been taught and educated, and poor Hareton's been raised to be a brute and
Mm-hmm.
can't even read, and she mocks him for it. But actually, it's rather sweet. Like they do come to each other on their own terms, I think, and then they do go scampering on the moor. It's kind of like the positive version of the big Cathy Heathcliff story. And I think it breaks Heathcliff because he sees that they're happy. I think that is
Mm-hmm.
genuinely what breaks him. And then to
Mm-hmm.
see them reclaim their inheritances, to see them live happily, to forgive each other, to move on, to not have inherited all the trauma. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful love story and ending to this very, very dark and dour novel. And when people always say like she's so transgressive, Emily Bronte, and it's such a wicked, like the initial reviews from moralizing Victorian England, well, are just horrified at the story. But actually, I think it's quite a high Tory story, quite a conservative story, because Big Cathy, I don't think she does cheat on her husband. I don't think it even crosses her mind. And young Cathy, I think it's a lovely, wholesome, beautiful, gorgeous story, and it just breaks this revenge cycle of Heathcliff's. It just breaks him. So
Mm-hmm.
it's for young Cathy because I think she's the best of both worlds. She's got all of Big Cathy's kind of sauciness and strength of character and courage, But she's probably got a bit from her dad, from Edgar, who's just a calmer character and more forgiving and more pliable. And so I think she's just a really delightful best of both. Shows what happens when you don't marry a cousin, right? Oh, shall we talk a bit? Who should we talk about next? Maybe Nelly's the only significant character we haven't really talked about. Thoughts and feelings? You know, there's a whole reading that Nelly is the queer character in the book, and that Nelly's the secret mastermind, and that she was the machinator of all the plot and the manipulator, and that she's really sapphiccally the one who should be giving pop-up books to Big Cathy.
I hadn't heard the sapphic aspect of this, but
Yeah, there were people, you know how like we're like, why did they not make Heathcliff dark? There's a whole stream, like Google it, there's a whole stream of Reddit and social media which is like, what, the only queer coded character is Nelly. Why did they unqueer Nelly, and why did they give that stupidly to Isabella? Like, they've done the queer codedness wrong, which I never saw it as queer coded, I'm just saying, but there are people out there who. And even when I was reading it, like having gone down the social media rabbit hole, it's like, oh, was Nettie gay all along and I didn't pick up on it? Because, you know,
okay, because
I am the idiot who didn't realize Renly was gay on the first read. So I'm off form on this.
Oh,
I really did not pick up on that when I read it today.
So when Renly asked Loris to pray with him, you thought they were really gonna pray.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
then,
he prayed?
so
It's a sweet summer child. What can I say, Steph?
I'd love to research the Nelly queer theory, but just, you know, like as, you know, like a precaution, you know, like, yes, a lot of fandoms
I mean,
often do.
he has a fucking rainbow flag. I mean, I despair of myself. There are bigger
Well, you
hints. But
see, that's because of the seven.
I know,
And, you
I
know, when you
know.
shine the light through a prism, you get 7 colors that happen to be the colors of the rainbow. So I can see why you didn't think about that.
But I like Nelly,
No.
and I think that it's important to recognise in the books that Nelly's only 3 or 4 years older than Heathcliff and Catherine, right?
Yeah, and I
So
like
she
that
is
they
young, and
included that.
she would have sexy feelings, and you know,
Mhm.
That's
that's good.
fascinating because that
Yeah.
is not the impression I got when I was reading it. It seemed like she was more of a motherly character throughout the whole
Yeah, you
thing.
just think wizened old crone, and mostly because she's taking care of babies. Like, it's quite sad. Like, she really, really cares for Hareton, then he's taken away, and she really care. You know, she's always forming these motherly attachments, but she's a babe. She's a real youngster. That said, of all the changes Emerald Fennel made, I thought having her be this sort of bastard, highborn, neither here nor there governess sort of character was quite good in the film. And I think Hong Chau's amazing. I just think the acting she can do with one facial expression is just phenomenal. So I
Yeah,
really
her
liked her.
performance was amazing.
But no, Nelly's just a working girl who's, yeah, not that much older than Heathcliff at all. So
Bringing up the why didn't Nelly tell tell Heathcliff about the second part of Cathy's speech, and you know we didn't get the I am Heathcliff part of that speech either in the book or from the book. You know, do you see that as an attempt to pin what happens in the book, or just to pin what happens in the story on Nelly? Because if, you know, like, how much do we think that, or, you know, like, is it just trying to like address a plot hole, or trying to actually like pin everything that happens on Nelly?
yeah, I think it's a bit overdone. A bit like the siblings thing. Like, you could make the case. I think it's a bit overdone. But I like the Nelly character. I love the fact it's
Yeah.
narrated through her. I love the slipperiness of the book. I mean, like the opening scene where Lockwood is literally trying to like raise the wrist of a child ghost, and it's blood soaking his sheets. I mean, it's that's like a flippin' horrifying opening scene. I mean, and Lockwood himself is a weird ass character. What's he doing there? What's he running away from? And he's just ill, and then he just goes, but he's always like poking his nose in and wandering about in the snow and getting pneumonia. It's just a very odd character. Do you think we should talk about Edgar or Joseph or maybe Hareton, Hindley? I don't know. They're not really in the film, are they? So there's no point.
Like they
I guess
combine.
before, if we could come, should we? Would you be just like quickly talk about the miscarriage? I forgot to bring that up during the Cathy section.
Yeah, what's your interpretation, Casey? Like, how does Big Cathy die in the film? What do you think causes her death?
So I mean, my like educated guess as a not doctor
But you're more scientifically and biologically knowledgeable
Right.
than the rest of us, right? Like,
So my thought was it was baby died in utero, and you need to evacuate the baby in order to not have it denigrate in your body. And so the sepsis would have been caused from the infection of the massive cells that were the child in the womb, just not having anywhere to go, I assume.
okay. So
Yeah. So think
is
that's
the baby
political?
dying because Kathy's being starving herself, or do you think the baby was going to die anyway?
Great question. I have no idea.
Do you think she
Me
is starving?
either.
Actually, I can't remember. In the film, does she starve herself, or am I now reading onto
She
what
is. She was starving herself,
Yeah.
and though that
And
was less of I think it was less of a thing in the books with her. More of a thing with Heathcliff.
yeah, she starves
Yeah.
herself in the book, and then you think she stopped because she's putting on weight again. But then when she dies and has just given birth, you're like, oh, you put on weight because you were pregnant, maybe. It's all very odd. And then, do you think she in the film? Do you think she deliberately didn't tell people the baby was dead because she knew she'd die from that, or do you think she did tell Nelly, but Nelly didn't believe because she's always being melodramatic?
I think that, your mind can do weird things to you. And I think in her grief, her outward behavior might not show that her any kind of pain that she's in, or any kind of beginnings of bleeding potentially. And so maybe she just you couldn't tell otherwise. I think one thing that I think usually with elderly people, but like your mentality when you go into that big of an infection it can really fuck with your mind and
Mm.
kind of make you look more crazy than you do actually like physically ill.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird choice to make because in the film, like she tells her husband that she's pregnant. They both seem very happy.
Hmm.
And you can tell that she's nervous. Like she knows the affair's gonna have to come to an end because she's gonna like Heath is gonna have to find out when she starts showing. And he does find out because he overhears Edgar, and that's all very awkward. But it just strikes me as weird that Edgar, knowing and being a very caring and loving husband in this film version, that he wouldn't, and he knows, I guess, that pregnancy is typically 9 months, that he wasn't checking in on her and seeing how the baby was progressing and shall we call in a doctor. And it just seemed odd that she would really have this dead baby inside her and no one figures out until she's like fully got septicemia.
Right, and I think
I
a lot
mean,
of this
if it
banks on time. Like I felt like in the movie that there was a lot of time passing, but it could have been more quick than what I actually felt it was. I don't know.
Mm.
the montage of the affair definitely makes you feel like more time is passing than perhaps is, and
Probably only a
the
month or something, I guess. Just a lot of
yeah
banging in that month. Yeah.
but I guess like it's just like but like today if you get pregnant like you would expect a lot of doctor's visits, but also just like if you were pregnant back then, how much medical attention would you really expect?
Although it did surprise me when I was reading, because this is the bit of the film that really, rather than having a strong opinion, yes or no, I was just like very puzzled by it all. So when I was reading the novel over the last couple of days, I was really paying attention to this. And there's Kennedy, the doctor's in and out and shake it all about all the time. That guy's always at the
Okay.
Grange. Yeah, and always I mean, like he's off and about. So yeah. And even Nelly, the house, I mean, like the Grange is fully staffed. Surely there'd be other housekeepers, there'd be ladies' maid, there'd be people who were keeping an eye on this stuff. So I just found it a very odd choice. And I did wonder if it was Emerald Fennel just trying to maybe give Cathy more agency. I don't know. Or maybe explain her mania. I mean, it is really interesting in the novel. I mean, she really, really has a proper full-on sort of nervous breakdown, which she doesn't really hear. She's not ranting and raving and being sort of having kind of visions, and it's a much more muted kind of depression in the film, I feel. But I don't know, it's almost like I mean, in both cases she just gives up, right? She just decides she can't reconcile everything, it's too much, and she's gonna go. But I don't know, it's a weird one. I just can't get my head around it. Steph, what was your interpretation of the whole thing?
Yeah, that she just gives up, but in the book it makes it like even when she like first announces that she lost the baby, that it doesn't seem like it seems like that's more that's more a part of, like, yeah, a childish thing of, okay, so now I can have Heathcliff, right? So that, like, there's no more commitment. There's nothing here like maintaining my commitment to Edgar.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, in a sense, she can't unwind her marriage because she can't unwind the pregnancy in the film.
Right.
But in the book, because you don't know she's pregnant, I mean, there's no reason why she couldn't just run off with Heathcliff other than shame. And does she really give a shit about that? Maybe she does. I don't know. We don't know so much about her. She's such a slippery figure because it's from Nelly. But you'd have thought that in the book, if she knew she was pregnant, she would have told Nelly.
Yeah, and I think part of the book that works so well is how frustrating these characters are, because especially
We don't
with
know.
Cathy, you or Catherine, you kind of feel like why are you doing this? You could do this, you could do that.
Yeah,
And
you've got
and
options.
a lot of that is, some of that is from the guise of being a woman in the time that I'm currently living in, reading it. But a lot of it is also, just why are you like doing this? And it kind of like plays well with these characters being so frustrating. Whereas in the
Mm.
movie, it's more of a like, the love has ended and now I must end, and I'm just gonna suffer.
Yeah, and I'm going to make you all suffer with me. I mean,
Yeah.
they're profoundly, profoundly narcissistic characters. I mean, Heathcliff and Cathy, Big Cathy, are just narcissism à deux, right? It's like our love matters. Our love is all consuming. Nothing else matters. None of you matter. You're all playthings for us, but our love is prime. And in a sense, they are absolutely detestable. Um, but I
But yeah,
don't.
but more than anything in the movie, the septic miscarriage made me think that this was more for like political commentary for this day and age than anything else. And
What to
she
say that
wasn't
this is
doing
what
the
happens when women don't have
yeah.
adequate childcare. And the only thing that makes me think you might be right there, because I don't think Emerald Fennel's being that clever here, and she clearly was being very political about women's issues in Promising Young Women. So it's very plausible that what you say is correct. I think the evidence in your favor is the line that Hong Chau's Nelly has, where she says, and I didn't believe her, because there's
Right.
such a commentary, isn't there, around women in general, Black women in particular, not being believed when they say they're in pain and when they have issues, and therefore, maternal sort of mortality rates really are very different by ethnicity in America.
And yeah, so I actually didn't know much about Emerald Fennel before we decided to do this. So I decided to Google her, and it looks like she was involved with Call the Midwife, and I've never
Yes,
seen Call the Midwife,
yeah.
but I understand that its reputation is that it doesn't shy away from depicting, like the very disturbing, like medical conditions or complications around
Yeah, it's
pregnancy.
it's it's a very interesting show, actually. It's a long running sort of show that used to go out sort of very prestige TV early evening on a Sunday, I believe, in the UK, which is that classic sort of, Sunday night drama slot. And very well done. I think set in the sort of 50s, 60s, so or 50s, like vintage piece. And she was one of the midwives. And it was a strange mix of being very, very polished and beautiful, but also, yeah, very honest about what women go through and just promising young women. Like she obviously has, and the way in which she depicts Isabella, like she has a view on how women are depicted in society. And I think if my accusation of her in this film is she's not as interested in the race stuff, but she's very interested in women's positions, right? So,
Yeah.
and
So
I
I
think
mean,
you
this is
see that in the way in which, Thrushcross Grange is depicted as a kind of Stanley Kubrick 2001 Space Odyssey prison for Star Child, right? It's this very weird, manicured. She's like the little Barbie doll trapped in the Barbie house, and it's all very plastic and PVC. And I think that, I mean, it's all very deliberate, and she's making a point. So I think probably, Steph, of all of our theories, I think it's this one I'll go with you on that. I think maybe it is
yeah,
very
and
clever.
also because this is the kind of thing, 'cause, like, in this day and age, it's very difficult to break through and to let
Mhm.
people know that your thing exists. And a cynical take would say that maybe that's part of the reason why she cast, or maybe that was a bonus for casting Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff, because then you get a ton of clickbait articles saying or just explaining the controversy around the casting choice, right?
Look,
But
I
you know,
don't
you
blame
can
her for
also
doing it on the grounds that it's very, very hard to get movies financed and to get an audience. And by any means necessary, if I were making a period piece about a deeply fucked up, weird film, and I had two of the biggest stars in the world available, I would cast them. Like I don't blame her. I think it's nakedly commercial and I get it. And if you have points you want to make about feminism and women's health, then you're going to reach more 14 to 25-year-olds by casting Jacob Elordi, right? So
right. And then so just like if you're in that demographic and you're not coming for Jacob Elordi or Margot Robbie, then you know, like what might get you is some clickbait article in say Teen
yeah.
Vogue that explains about, you know, like Wuthering Heights explores a dark message for post-Roe America or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
I mean, I think my issue with Emerald is not what she's done, but her explanations of what she's done. So rather than just being honest and saying, hey, I cast Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi because I want the most people possible to see this film. And if, even 1% of them go on to read this book that I love, that will be amazing. And I have this really strong message about women. I'd love it. But instead she's like, well, it's a very complicated book and no one can really capture it. It's way too complicated and dense. And you can only really make the film that you remembered as a 14-year-old. I was like, stop making excuses. Stand by your choices. They're valid choices. I don't agree with them, but they're valid. Stop
Yeah,
making
and
you
look with
you can patently film this book if you want to and be honest with it. Many people have or
yeah,
tried to. So
yeah,
shut the
and
fuck up.
yeah, and so like and with this adaptation too, like she's not doing the second generation anyway, so she loses nothing by cutting young Cathy.
Yeah, exactly. Means you can't have a sequel though, which is maybe commercially done. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any other characters we should talk about, or any other facet of the film? This is a sort of film first cast. I really like Martin
Uh,
Clunes. Poor Papa Earnshaw gets all the horrible traits of Hindley, well, not the violence, but certainly the gambling and the drinking. But I thought he did very well. But he again felt like he was in a third film. I felt Jacob Elordi was in a very normal film, like a very straight drama. And then you had a lot of characters who felt like they were in Poor Things. And then you've got Martin Clunes, who felt like he was in a Dickensian sort of like British Christmas TV miniseries, doing this outlandish but really, really, really sinister, nasty, but quite funny character. I don't know. Anything else to say?
yeah, I'd say cutting Hindley was a big mistake because, you know, it's like
Yeah.
Hindley's extreme abuse of Heathcliff is, you know, a big point in Heathcliff's favor of getting us to root for Heathcliff, for, you know, like
Ah,
seeing Cathy as a perfect figure because Cathy gives a damn about Heathcliff in
yeah. He's the
comparison.
only one who
And
does, right? Yeah.
it's, you know, for like a big emotions piece of, you know, like of Wuthering Heights about big virulent emotions, then, you know, like what's more, you know, besides like passion, you know, like what's more intense than, you know, the hatred of a child dethroned from their parents' love?
Yeah, the cuckoo in the nest. It's an
The
amazing, amazing story, and it speaks to that Frankenstein aspect that when Heathcliff turns up, he's this poor little 5, 6, 7 year old. He's dark. He's babbling some language they don't understand, talking gibberish, but he's not evil. He's a good kid who's enough. He clings to Cathy because Cathy shows him love. And Hindley just abuses him physically, verbally. And it's part of the love story that Heathcliff, because he's big and strong and capable, could have run off at any point, but he stays and takes the abuse for Cathy because he wants to be with Cathy, and it's part of that love story, and that Cathy tries to take the blame to save him. Their willingness to endure abuse to stay near each other is part of that childhood love.
yeah, and it just adds more texture to the emotional landscape of what's going on, and you know, it's about like, you know, especially just like right now, you know, like as like what this movie is competing with. Well, right now I'm trying to catch up on like Olympic figure skating, and I think that's a good comparison because of like the sport's deep relationship with opera. And
Mm.
you know, like you get the highs and lows, the you know, like the trying to like present the you know, like for the pair stuff, sometimes romantic chemistry. So I think yeah, you know, like
Yeah,
I didn't feel any chemistry in this movie, and for or just like many real emotions. And you know, like I had the great privilege to once see the opera Orpheus and Eurydice, and during the overture they just told the love story in like 5 minutes through
Yeah.
dance with no music. And that was beautiful, and that made the stakes real. So when the actual story starts, even though the leading couple spends that time apart, you understand the depth of the plot.
Sorry, yeah, Casey, what were you trying to say?
No, sorry. I think I'm just with this movie. She clearly wanted to show the one aspect of women, how difficult it is to be a woman in this society, regardless of age, and that's fine. I think that incorporating a lot more of the intersectionality between women having these struggles, but also having, especially as Cathy is a white woman, a different set of power that Heathcliff does not have, and them both exploiting the powers that they do have and coming back together in the middle of the book, and just like they don't seeing how they've turned their lives into what each other wanted, but also against what they could have been. It's such it's a much more powerful story, and
Yeah.
I think that people making movies these days think that people are kind of just like not looking for like too much. And
Yeah, and actually, yeah, like don't patronize us. We could have handled it, especially in a fucking 2 hour, 15-minute runtime. To only
right.
do half the book with half the characters and half the kind of the political commentary, because you're doing the women but not the race. I think it's all the financial is kind of weird to me because you had 2 hour 50. What makes me angry is like you only get one of these Wuthering Heights films once every 15 years or so. So this is it for another 15 years. They don't get made that often. I
Mhm.
just really hope that one day we get a proper mini series because I think it is just one of those books that requires 6 parts and a bit of leisure. And
That would be amazing.
if you want the
Meanwhile, the
white boy
best one.
version of this, there's a lovely Tom Hardy as Heathcliff version that does well. But
Meanwhile, there's my favorite is the 1992 version with
no, my
Ray
favorite's the
Fiennes.
2011 Andrea Arnold does the first half of the
That
book,
one's
but
good.
yeah,
That
has a
one's
black
good, but
Heathcliff.
true. But the first generation only is always kind of an uphill battle.
Yeah, the first generation only is always a problem, but I think in a film it is tricky because it's a lot of book. That said, it surprised me because I've got this very tiny little, very pretty edition, but even then it's only 400 pages. I mean, it's not the longest book. I don't know. But it's an amazingly powerful book. I will be ruminating on this book for the next weeks and months. It's amazing. It just picks you up.
I do have two comments that I don't really have don't really have any continuity, but I just need
Yeah,
to
do it. Throw
and
'em in.
just kind of like, what the fuck was this? Like,
Yeah.
so they're the eggs.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Well, like, it's not about like the imagery for me. Like, I understand why
She
visually.
likes viscous liquids, I
Yes.
think. She likes bodily
We wanted to
fluid
make it look
adjacent
like
liquids.
vaginal fluid or whatever. But
Yeah.
aren't eggs expensive? And they made a big deal about them being poor? Or am I just like
Yeah.
todayizing eggs?
Maybe if you live on a farm, even though you're poor, eggs are plentiful. I don't know.
I mean, they didn't have any chickens.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The moors are unhospitable for the
Where
poultry.
did they get these? Where did she get all these eggs?
And
And
also,
how did
why
they
are
not
you
get in
poking
trouble
your
for it?
finger in the aspic to get to the fish? If only, I mean, I just think Emerald Fennel just has a fixation with jelly. It's just weird. What was
And then
your other one?
my second one was just I asked Greg a lot about this last night because he's more of the history guy than I am, and I was like, did people get like turned on at hangings, or like was that just like a
That
weird
whole opening
intro?
scene was just pure nonsense. It just was angry makingly dumb. It's like you've got a book with probably the most gruesome, grotesque, shocking opening in literary history. And you're like, no, I am arrogant enough to just make another one completely different.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is loud exclamation.
There's a little bit of in the Wuthering Heights in this movie, and in the theater that I was in, like there was a bit of like, we're here for the vibes, but like
Yeah.
not for the smartness. And like I
She's
love
made
my
it for that, right?
I love
She's made
my
it for the TikTok
yeah.
generation. She's made it
I
for arresting visuals and music.
Right. And like I don't read my romantasy books because they're the finest literary things out there, but like that and they are mostly here for the vibes, but like you can still read them and be critical of that aspect and
Hmm.
like, maybe not be here for it. You know, it's like I'm very
I
when I'm talking
love a
about
trashy bodice ripper. Like I will happily read like a Barbara Cartland book. Like I love I can do that. Like I was really I mean I said that to Philip when we went for Valentine's Day. And he was like, why are you taking me? Why are you making me take you? Rather, you're gonna hate it and then you're gonna moan about it. And I'm gonna hate it anyway because I don't want to see it. But I'm gonna see it because I love you. But secretly he wanted to see it because then he knew I would owe him for like the next 5 months because he'd just moan about it. Because that's how marriage works. But I was ready to watch this film on its own terms. I was like, I'm going to forget the book. This is just going to be really fun. Like I watched Real Housewives. Like this is going to be mindless, gorgeous, two gorgeous people. Jacob Elordi being gorgeous in a wet, gossamer shirt, shagging the hell out of Margot Robbie in a big billowy, non-authentic but really sexy bodicey dress, and I'm here for it. Like I was ready to accept it on its own terms, but it still failed.
Yeah,
For
and I
me.
think I think part of the reason why it failed is like she couldn't stay in like either the true to
Nickelodeon.
book lane or like I think you can really there are ways to poke fun at this book and do it in a very tasteful way that I think would have been better than doing this middle ground like we're doing a quirky feminist version of Wuthering Heights.
Yeah. Actually, the only scene that really got it for me on the kind of romanticy level was when he picks her up by the bodice. Although that's a little bit sexy, to
Yeah.
be fair. That's a little bit sexy. I'm down for that. But other than
I
that,
was into it.
yeah, I was into it. I mean, like I'm into Jacob Elordi though, even though he's
Yeah,
young enough to be my son, so it's a
honestly,
little bit weird. But yeah, I think he's very good. I genuinely think he's a good actor, and I think he really does his best with this role. And it's just tricky because he and Hong Chow are just in a different film. They really are.
I mean, knowing the only other thing I've seen him really in is Euphoria, and that is a whole other discussion with that show.
He's worth.
But
I mean,
it,
Frankenstein's on Netflix, and it's
yeah,
it's a flawed film, but he's very good as the monster, and it's a
no,
very
that's
similar
what I'm gonna
character.
do next. But
Yeah,
a
sweet,
good, he
sweet,
does a really good
lovely
bad guy.
actor. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
the accent. The York, and actually, funnily enough, he uses the same accent in Frankenstein, so it must have taken him a lot to get into it, and they must have shot concurrently. But
right.
I think he does very well. I think he's a good actor. I genuinely do.
But I think that you could that she and I think he wanted to, it seemed like in the movie, to be more of that like dark gray character where like yeah in the beginning he is who he is but then he turns into this absolute monster who
Mm,
then eventually just kind of resigns himself.
yeah, because they
And
never show him as a monster. I
yeah,
mean,
and
his
I think
final
that
Right.
scene, if they should have been him ripping up the grave, or
and he
I
does an
don't know.
excellent job in Euphoria of really being that bad guy and also pointing out as an actor that like everybody that is into him in Euphoria is only into him because he's hot.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like it really just like he does that so well and so I don't know why they couldn't do it. However, the last scene with him crying over her dead body really got me and
Yeah,
that was
it was lovely. He
excellently
sold it,
done.
and it's
Yeah.
beautifully posed. The thing is, like in the book, they're not actually good looking. I mean, at one point, someone calls Cathy. I think one of the doctors, I think Dr. Kennedy might say, like a stout, hearty woman like Catherine, like like she's. I think she's a bit, she. I don't think they look like that, right? The whole point is that they're in love with each other, and it's elemental. It's nothing to do with looks or sexual attraction. It's something so much more profound.
Right.
But who doesn't want to think that if I were to die tomorrow, that Philip in 20 years' time would just starve himself to death because he couldn't bear to be without me? What woman doesn't dream of that kind of devastating impact? It's so unhealthy. We're just teaching our young women such unhealthy behaviors and expectations with these
I
books.
mean, I do tell Greg on the regular that if I die first, I will haunt the hell out of him. So he's got to be prepared.
Oh, well, that feels like a good place to end things. Unless, is there any other little sort of bits that didn't fit anywhere else, Steph, that you'd like to throw into the
Um,
box soup?
Not that I can think of.
Well, we can always do a follow-up as and when you read the book. I mean, I think it's a book that's
Yeah.
going to stay with me.
Yeah.
It is a weird ass
And
book. I have to say, God, but I mean, we could almost do a combo episode on just the book, but also like, who's the true villain? Is it Nelly? Is it indeed Hindley or Linton? Linton, man, that guy needs a
Right.
Oh
slap.
my god. Or are they all just self-destroying of themselves?
I mean, but he's just horrid. He's
Mm-hmm.
just so. I mean, he's a real Joffrey. I mean, you'll find streams of like book talk and stuff where people say that Linton is the true devil fiend of the book, which I really enjoy. Like, he's just so horrible. So we
The
we could actually do an episode like dumb shit people say about Wuthering Heights online, but get obsessed with, and kind of like 5% of it rings true, and then it makes you think. You know?
Right.
yeah, we can definitely do with like after, even if like we can do like more adaptation discussion with the older adaptations to give the 2011.
Yeah, I mean, watch some of the other films as well. Yeah, that's not a
I mean,
bad idea.
Yeah, and
when I
there's also
say
one with Laurence Olivier. Huh? So yeah, my favorite one is 1992. So I
Mine is
have a chance to talk
2011.
about that. And it's in 1992. It actually does the full 2 generations in less time than this movie took. It's like an hour 45 minutes.
Yeah, which is amazing, really.
So
And you know, talking about her, Emily Bronte, because there's all sorts of theories that she was also anorexic. This is a very kind of like self-harming novel in so many
Mhm.
ways, psychologically, physically. Like this is a book about self-harm, basically. Physical abuse by others and to yourself. There's
Right.
also a big strand of research around the idea of, was she autistic? So there's all sorts of ways in which you can discuss Emily Bronte. She lived a very odd life. I mean, the way she died, which was basically drinking corpse runoff water at a funeral and then not allowing a doctor to be called. I mean, you could argue that she was dead at 30, right? She'd lost
Yeah.
two sisters and her mother by 7. She was dead at 30. I mean, like the whole it's so morbid, this book, and you think, but that was her life, right? They didn't know anyone. It was incestuous and claustrophobic, and everyone did just flipping die every 5 pages.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And the whole family is fascinating. I watched I watched a YouTube video that was basically like a 45-minute documentary on the Bronte sisters, and it's just fascinating. Like, you know, the grief that they had from, you know, their siblings dying, their mother,
the boarding school.
yeah, their brother's drug and alcohol use, like
Yeah, I mean,
fascinating.
she wrote from life, right? I mean, the character of
Yeah.
Hindley dissipating, that's from her brother. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
mad father running around with like loaded guns at every point, and then you see Heathcliff just accidentally, like, shoots himself, and that's how he gets injured. Was it accidental? Was he trying to commit suicide? Yeah, like a lot of the brutish violence that Charlotte Bronte in her 40s says, oh, excuse this, it was just her fevered imagination. Isn't it bizarre that she should come up with this shit, given that we were just a parson's daughter living a very sensible life? And you think, no, no, no. I mean, this was written from life. I mean, yes, with imagination and creativity, because she was a great writer, but yeah, this was very observed. And actually, what was the point someone was making to me, that, or maybe it was in that book club podcast, or it was a different podcast I was listening to, that when your father's a priest, people, they were kind of treated almost as like marriage guidance counselors and sort of therapists. So
Mm-hmm.
people would be constantly coming to your parsonage to say, help me, I'm in this state of affairs, such as being pregnant out of wedlock. And apparently there was a woman who came to the parsonage and said, I'm in this really terrible situation. I've been married to this guy and he's beating the shit out of me, but I've got a son, like a very Isabella story.
Mm-hmm.
And the dad was like, Papa Bronte was like, no, you've got to get out, you've got to go. And then years later, she came back to the parsonage and was telling the daughters, like, thank you so much. Like, I'm in a boarding house in Manchester. I've got my son with me. We rent out rooms. I'm making, this was my escape, a bit like Isabella. So I think even though they lived this very claustrophobic, isolated rural life, because of the nature of what their father did for a living, they saw a lot of, like, the call the midwife thing. They saw a lot of the harsh reality of life. And even though she probably never did have a sexual relationship with anyone and died a virgin, that's not to presume that she didn't know how relationships and marriages worked just because of her environment. So
Right. And I also think that part of their upbringing is part of what made her book so good in, leaving a lot of aspects of the relationships and things done off screen to the imagination.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just love this book. I think it's amazing. And just reading it these past couple of days, you just realize how it just picks you up and arrests you once again. And just phenomenal, really. And even a flawed film like this still gives you so much to talk about because the core story is just so fascinating and so slippery. And, so thank you, Emerald Fennel. You're a shit filmmaker, but you did make us have a wonderful conversation. So, okay. Well, this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you very much for joining at short notice. And thank you to you, dear listener. If you haven't read the novel, please do. It's just, well, I wouldn't say delightful. It's provocative and interesting and weird and quite horrific, and might well give you nightmares, as all good books should. And please join us again on Vassals of Kingsgrave. You're going to be deluged with episodes covering both the last episode of Knights of the Seven Kingdom and a series review. Lots of good stuff coming up. So, with that, thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Bina.
Peace.